listening to the Chain Clankers podcast with your hosts, Quentin Ferris and Horatio Gonzalez. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers. What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Chain Clankers podcast. I am your host, Quentin Ferris, here, joined as always with Horatio Gonzalez. We got a fantastic episode for you guys today. Today we're going to be talking our 10 tips that disc golfers should avoid when starting out. A great show lined up for you. These are mistakes that we made when we first started disc golfing, and we want to share these tips with you, and hopefully you won't be making these mistakes. And if you do, maybe you still have time to correct some of these mistakes. Let's bring in our co-host today, Horatio Gonzalez. How are we doing today, man?
Good, we're doing good. Just ready. I'm excited to share a lot of this stuff. I know it's pretty important stuff that made a huge impact in our game. And stuff that is very recent in our minds, stuff that we maybe realized we were doing wrong in the last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm excited to see, hopefully we can catch some early players early on and help them not make these mistakes going forward.
Yeah, man, and like we said in our intro podcast, we're never going to sit here and tell you we are professionals. We know every single thing about disc golf that there is to know, but we are two guys who have really gotten into slanging some discs, and we think that we have something to offer anyone of any skill level, and that's exactly what we hope to do today. Hopefully these tips will help you get better at disc golf. Comment down below if you're watching on YouTube and let us know which of these tips were you already avoiding, which of these tips were you doing currently and that you're gonna stop after this video. Tweet at us, Instagram at us, any of those things. You can do so at Chain Clankers. We got links in the description below. Horatio, how did you spend your National Disc Golf Day? We're recording this on Monday, August 3rd. It's going to drop in a week, so it'll be a little bit outdated by the time it rolls around. It would have been 2 weekends ago, but what did you do for National Disc Golf Day?
Unfortunately, I did not get to celebrate Disc Golf Day. I had to work. By the time I got off, I had an event to go to, and after that, it was pretty late, so unfortunately, I did not get to play, but that's all right. Needed a break. It just happened to fall on that day, and I'm sure other people can relate and weren't able to get out, but I made it up the next day, so we're all good there. What about you?
Yeah, I was thinking I was going to take a break that day as well, but thankfully I was able to go out and play. I was trying to record a video for our YouTube channel. I was going to one of our local courses that's near my girlfriend and I's apartment, and I was trying to go 18 down. I was trying to have the perfect round. This is a course that's very attackable for all skill levels. It's something that most advanced players, if they're really, really going for it, they could probably get 18 down. But definitely I was trying to get the 18 down, and I was 12 down through 12, and a torrential downpour came out of nowhere. It was raining so hard. It was on our Instagram story at Chain Clankers. Make sure you check it out. Follow us on there, and you'll never miss anything like this again. But it was really, really unfortunate. I was hoping that I was going to be able to complete it. I did one more hole, too wet. The discs were too wet. I didn't have a towel, and ended up just having to call it quits. Went back the next day, and I did try to do that video again, but then quickly that video just changed into something else, and we'll be putting that video on YouTube, so subscribe now. That's youtube.com/Chain Clankers. Check us out, and you're not going to want to miss that video. It's going to be a good video. It's going to be really informative. The back nine of that course, I decided to kind of do something a little different, and I was kind of explaining which lines you want to take on certain holes, and just kind of giving you that strategy behind the disc golf and what you're doing. But Horatio, let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, these people got precious time. They want to get out. They want to go clank. Let's not take up any more time. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so I'll start us off here with number 10. We got our 10 tips, and I'll start with number 10. And really what it is, it's just playing too fast. I think we've all done this. I know I definitely do this if someone's behind me. I'm trying to play way too fast. I'm not really focusing on the shot, and I'm just kind of throwing the disc, hoping for the best, but probably not working out too well for me. So what you want to avoid is playing too fast. Even if there's someone behind you, you want to take your time before you throw the disc. Maybe don't actually let go of the disc, but take a quick little practice, what it would look like, what it would feel like if you threw that disc. Really vision and hone in on what target you want to hit for your disc. Think about what way you want your disc to go. Doing that will really help you just get more accurate, and you'll be hitting those lines much more instead of just walking up and just throwing it or not even thinking about it and just letting the disc go. You're actually comprehending what you're trying to do, which will allow you to get better, and that practice that you're doing there will then translate to tournament rounds or league rounds and things like that.
And even if there's people behind you, let them through. If you're by yourself, you're with a buddy, and even if it's a group of 3 or 4, if you're practicing, let them through. That way you don't have that pressure. You don't have people waiting on you. You can focus. You can take your time. And, it's common sense for you guys that are new. I know it took me a while to learn. If you're out there playing and you're with a group of buddies and there's 1 or 2 guys by themselves, they're going pretty quick, let those guys through. That way they can get on with their game. They're not waiting on you. But likewise, if you're practicing and you're throwing 4 or 5 discs at a time, you're going to be that guy that's making people wait on you. If there's 1 or 2 people behind you and you're practicing, they're going to get kind of frustrated, and it's kind of rude. So let them through. Let people play, especially if you're practicing. That way you can get on with your practice, and they can get on with their game, and everyone's happy. So with that, we'll go on to number 9. Comparing yourself to others. So I think this one is one that we do unintentionally. We don't really realize we're doing it, and it's not really a lot of what you're doing with how you're playing your game or what you're practicing. It's more mental. This is more of your mental game. Comparing yourself to others. I know when we started playing, you're the one that got me into it, so we'd go play. You'd been playing for a while. And so it'd be frustrating for me seeing you drive and hit 300, 300 plus drives, and I'm just starting out and I'm barely clearing 100, 150 because I haven't learned anything. I don't have it down. And it would be frustrating. I'm like, why can I not keep up with him? And it would just ruin the rest of my game. But even once I started playing and kept practicing, getting better, watching YouTube and watching other disc golfers and seeing the kind of shots they were making, the kind of distances they were clearing, and comparing myself and getting mad and why I was not able to do that. And I think that's really bad for your confidence, really bad for your mental game. And so that's one thing that you should really be careful with. You got any comments on that?
Yeah, as Marshawn Lynch once said, you got to take care of your mentals, your chicken, and your bread. I might have butchered that slightly, but disc golf is 50% mental, and I think you can agree with me on that one. Disc golf is truly half skill, half mental, and if you let your mental get affected, then your round is going to get worse. I know myself, I would compare myself to my buddies when I first started playing, and then as I started to introduce you to it and other people into it, I would compare myself to the top level pros, like a Simon Lizotte, like a Paul McBeth, like an Eagle McMahon. Those type of players, you cannot compare yourself to those guys. If you even think
they've been playing for years. It's not, you don't think about that though. You just think about the shots and
exactly. You comparing yourself to those type of folk is only going to make your round worse, and you're not going to have fun doing it. Disc golf is about having fun at the end of the day, and if you're doing something and comparing yourself to other people that's not going to allow you to have fun, just stop it. Don't do it. Don't compare yourself to other people. Just work on your game and your game alone. And in doing so, your game is going to get better and you're going to get closer to them. I mean, I know when we first started playing, we weren't really keeping score, but there was a massive difference. Like you said, I was driving 300, you were driving 100, 150, but now we're driving pretty dang similar. If not myself, maybe I'm at 350, you're at 275, 300, something like that. But even then, sometimes you outdrive me on certain holes. So it's one of those things, when you compare yourself to people, you're only going to get worse and you're only going to be more upset. Disc golf is a lot about mentals, and you want to keep your mentals straight, and you don't want to worry about what other people are doing. If you're in a tournament and you're worrying about what someone else is doing, you're going to mess up. That's just how it is. There's a reason you'll hear a ton of top pros be like, I don't check the scores. Eagle McMahon, literally, let's talk about the D-Glow. Let's talk about the Discraft Great Lakes Open. If you're not sure what we're talking about, it's the Disc Golf Pro Tour. This is where the best of the best go, and they compete in disc golf tournaments, right? Eagle McMahon won that tournament. This man really stepped up to his birdie putt on 18 to win the tournament, thinking he needed to make that putt to tie. He didn't know he won. So I think that's really critical, because he knew kind of sort of what he needed to get, but he wasn't focused on what someone else was doing. He's focused on what he was doing. And I think that's super critical for any disc golfer to do. Focus on yourself, focus on your game, get your game better. Don't worry about what other people are doing. And I think you can apply that to a lot of other things in life.
Yeah, and I know we only have this one up on our number 9, but I think this one is crucial. And going forward, this is one that you will continue to struggle with. A lot of the other ones we're going to talk about, they're kind of like beginner and you'll figure out. But this one is really, really important to continue to focus on, because disc golf is a sport where you're not on a team. There's no one else, if you're struggling, to carry your weight. Unless you're playing like doubles or something. If you're in a tournament, you're by yourself, and you're not focused on your own game, you're going to struggle. Because this is a game where you're not competing necessarily versus the other people. You're competing versus yourself and versus that course. If you can play that course perfectly and do it to your best ability, that's all you can do. It doesn't matter what the other person did. There might be a person out there who you think is better than you, but if they go out there and they're having a bad day and they completely screw it up, as long as you played your best game and you played the course to your best ability, you're going to beat them. Because this is a game where it's you by yourself, and that's it, and that's all you can focus on. So I think that's a really good one.
Let's move on now. Let's move on to number 8. And this is one that I don't think we have to spend a whole lot of time on, but it's not recording yourself enough. When we say that, we mean either yourself or having whoever you're with record how you're driving, record how you're putting, those kinds of things. You know, there's certain things you can see when you watch yourself back on film. There's a reason why all the pro athletes and, you know, football, basketball, baseball, etc. watch film.
Yep.
It's because when you watch the film, you can see what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. And I think we were talking about this a little bit off camera, and that when you make a bad throw, you can see what you did wrong and you can kind of correct that. But I think something that's more important is when you make a good throw, you can see what you did and you can visualize what it is. And I think that visualization allows you to have a better and more consistent game, and you can make that throw more often because now you can visualize this is what this throw is supposed to look like, not just always this is what this throw is not supposed to look like. What are your thoughts there, Horatio?
Yeah, and also another important part of that is you can see your improvement. You can go back and look when you're getting frustrated. I know I did it myself today, and just trying to come up with ideas and kind of brainstorm for this podcast today. So I went back and looked at old videos I had when I barely started, and I couldn't believe how far my form has come. So I think it's good for confidence booster. Sometimes if you're struggling, if you hit a plateau, and you feel like you're not getting any better, you can go back and look how far you've come and continue to improve, and that'll help you having those videos. And then also, if you want to help a buddy out, if they haven't played, kind of showing them visually like what to look for and what they can improve on. But with that, that one's pretty easy to record yourself. All you need is a cell phone, you know. Mainly, I would suggest from a side angle. It's a little easier to see your footwork and your upper body. Place your phone. I place mine on my backpack. You don't need anything fancy. I just make sure it's stable. I put it on my backpack and I record myself from the side. That way I can see my full body, I can see myself turn, I can see my follow through, and it's really easy to do all of it. As to where if you do it, you can also do some from behind, from a front lateral angle to kind of see what that looks like. But from the side, it's going to be your best option for that.
Yeah, I mean, literally take an Instagram story of it and tag us at Chain Clankers on, I mean, you can do so on Twitter also, but on Instagram. And we'll even commentate on your throw. Maybe give you some pointers or something like that. Some things that we have learned. And we're going to get into those things in other episodes and stuff like that. So make sure you do stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode.
Yeah, and I know I did that when I kind of first started, and about like 2 months in maybe, because I wanted to catch bad habits. I took a video of myself that was good quality, and I shared it to our local disc golf group on Facebook, and I asked them, I was like, hey guys, I know I'm not perfect, I just started. If you would please just kind of comment on anything you see I'm doing wrong, anything I could fix. And people are super friendly. They're gonna be helpful, and they're gonna tell you. But you just have to have a tough skin. You have to be humble. You have to be coachable. That's so important, is just to be coachable. And that helped out a ton, because sometimes they'll point out stuff you didn't even see. I know they were telling me about like my elbow position or other stuff that I was not really focused on improving, that helped me out a bunch. So that's a great tip, is just to take videos of yourself and share them if you're comfortable, and people will help you out. But with that one, we're going to move on to number 7. This one might catch you a little bit off guard, but it's depending on drivers too much. I think when you're starting off, you want to get the drivers. They look the coolest, they're sleek, they are supposed to go really far, supposed to go really fast, and it's what all the pros are throwing. If you watch any of the tournaments, they're throwing drivers off their tee. And I think that really screwed me up, because the driver is not going to be very honest with you. I know on a video I watched with Simon Lizette, he talked about one thing that helped him improve the most was throwing putters for an entire 18-hole round, because the putters will not lie to you. Putters are very stable, meaning they're meant to go straight. If you throw them correctly, they should pretty much just go straight. So when you're starting out and you throw a putter and your form is off at all, you don't throw it correctly, it's going to show you what you did wrong. If it goes completely to the left, you early released it, or your form was off, or your angle of the disc, if you threw it more on the hyzer, it's going to go left. If you throw it completely to the right, you got grip lock, which means the disc kind of stuck to your hands, or you threw it on a more of an N-hyzer angle, meaning it went on the left higher to the right of the disc being lower. So it's extremely helpful. I know sometimes when I go out and practice, I will throw a putter off the tee as if it's my actual drive, and I'll kind of look at it and see if it's a good drive, kind of what I did wrong on it. And then I would throw my actual driver and correct what I saw from my putter. Do you have anything to add on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and I think something that I've kind of learned the last 2 times out that I've went and played a course, it's been that course I tried to get 18 down on, and I've only taken mid-ranges and putters with me. I haven't even bothered to take a driver with me, and what I'm finding is that I can throw it just as far with a mid-range than I can with a driver. Now, sure, the driver might get me an extra 50 feet or something like that, but like you were saying, the driver truly will, I guess, kind of overcome some form inconsistencies. And when you throw a driver, what's going to happen typically, if it's overstable, which means it tends to fade left more than another disc, then if you throw it, it's going to end to the left. Where if I throw a mid-range that's maybe a little bit more stable, where it should fly a little straighter, and it goes off to the right, well, that means I probably let go of it too late. in my drive. And so kind of learning those things, same thing with a putter, kind of learning those things. And I really think that you should go out there and just in some practice rounds, don't even keep score. If you're somebody who stresses out about your score every single time you go out and play a practice round, don't keep score. I'm telling you, this is a bonus tip, right? This is the bonus tip right here. Don't keep score always. I know I was getting absolutely frustrated when I'd keep score all the time. Just don't do it. Just don't keep score all the time, and you're going to have more fun, and you're going to try some shots that you might not have tried before, and you're going to get better doing that. And I think relying less on those drivers will help you, because think about it. When you get into a big-time tournament and you throw your drive, let's say it's a 600-foot hole, or heck, I played the tournament, you were unable to be there. There's a hole at that Little Apple Open that's 800 feet, right? If I throw my drive 350 feet, I still have a ton of feet to go, right? So my mid-range has to be good so that I can continue to get up there. Or maybe a fairway driver has to be good so that way I can get up there. So I think that's really critical, and I do think that's a really good point. And that kind of brings me then to our next point now, and moving to number 6 on our list. It's stop going out and buying discs too fast. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. Don't stop buying discs, but don't do it too fast. I know I fell for it for H-Town. I know you fell for it as well.
It's
These
fun.
discs look cool. Oh, there's so many different brands. Like, I want to get them all. And I still do. Trust me, I still do. I literally told myself to stop buying discs, and what did I do? I went out and bought another disc. But don't buy them too fast, right? Get good with the discs that you're using now, and then kind of expand off of that. When you just go out and buy a bunch of discs because they look cool or because it's something new and you've never seen it before, that could cost a lot of money. I know there was like a month span where every time we would be in person, I would spend $100-ish on more discs that I didn't need, and I just don't throw them a whole lot now. I'll throw them maybe once or twice every 2 weeks or something like that. I won't throw, they're not my everyday discs. So it's one of those things where yes, buy discs, explore, experiment. That's totally cool. But don't just go buy discs to buy discs, and because every single thing looks cool. You want to make sure you're getting better with your discs and not just blowing a bunch of money on discs, if that makes sense. For H-Town, you can clarify if that was a little confusing.
Okay, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the main reasons when people start, or when I started, and you go out and continuously buy discs, you get excited, but I think the main reason is you think that the disc is going to improve your game and get you to where you need to be a lot quicker. You see YouTubers or you see someone else throwing a certain disc and doing absolutely amazing things with it. So you're like, that disc is going to up my game. It's going to give me an advantage on the course next time I play. And unfortunately, that's wrong. If you don't have your form down, if you don't have a technique down, you don't have the knowledge of how to throw that disc is going to do absolutely nothing for you. If anything, it's going to mess you up. I know I had heard a lot of things about the Nuke SS, and I really wanted that disc. And I finally got it. And let me tell you, that is a tough disc to figure out. And it really didn't do anything for me, but everybody was saying this is a disc that will let you throw bombs and get it out 400 feet or whatever. I was like, I need to do that. I need to get my distance up, so this is the disc that I need. So I would just say, do your homework, watch YouTube reviews on disc, and see kind of what people are throwing that worked for them. And maybe not professionals, but more your regular guys that are throwing discs. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I think something that's critical is you hit that subscribe button right now, especially if you're watching on YouTube, because we're going to be doing that. A series we have planned is taking the different discs that we have combined and telling you the truth about those discs. What do those discs actually do? Is it worth investing in those discs? So definitely hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because that's something we're going to be doing. And I can't remember exactly how many it was, H-Town. Was it 40 or was it 20 discs? Because I know initially when you were really getting into it off Facebook Marketplace,
Yeah.
either 40 or 20 discs. How many of those
Yeah.
discs do you honestly, how many of those discs are in your bag now? Because
Oh
I haven't
man.
seen any of them that are in your bag.
Oh wow, yeah, that's so this was when we first started getting into this. You introduced me to it, and I wanted to play more. So I looked it up on Facebook just to see if anybody was selling any discs. And this guy, which now I'm pretty sure he's the guy that gets into the water at the ponds or the rivers and fishes discs out. But he was selling 40 discs for $80, which is pretty good for discs.
An incredible deal.
Yeah. But by the time I hit him up, he had already sold a few, so he only had like 23 left. And I think I paid him $40 for it. And I was like, sweet, I'm ready to play. I got all the discs I need. I'm never going to need to buy another disc in my life. I was even giving some away because I was so like confident in all these discs I had. But now, going forward 2-3 months, a lot of those discs were crap. They were a lot of, and they'll work for people that go out to play for fun, or if people are starting to get into it. They were more of your like DX plastics or cheaper plastics, the ones that are really rough. But a lot of them were like discs that definitely had been beaten into trees a million times, and they had chunks falling out of them, and they were just rough. And yeah, I don't really throw any of those discs. I gave a lot of those away to my nieces and nephews who have started to enjoy playing disc golf, and for them it's perfect. They're really light, if they lose them, no worries, or they can just kind of get a hang of the game. So that's a great example of buying too many discs too fast. I knew nothing about disc golf, nothing about discs, and this guy had 23 discs, and I was like, let's do it. So yeah, so just take your time, do your homework, and get to know a disc. One thing I would say is if you're going to go and buy discs, instead of buying two different discs, if you're going, find a disc that you're interested in learning or you want to buy. Instead of buying 2 or 3 different discs, buy 2 discs of the same discs. Buy 2 or 3 so you can, if you go out to practice, you can throw that same disc 2 or 3 times off the tee and kind of correct and learn it and see what you're doing wrong. I know I've tried to start building my bag more that way. If I go and buy a mid or a driver, I like to buy 2 of them. That way I can get a hang of them and kind of learn the disc and have more ability to practice with that disc than just as opposed to having the one. Or if you lose it, you have a backup that you can throw. And that kind of takes us to our next one, number 5, which is similar but a little bit different, and that is playing with too many discs at once. So you're going to a course, and at this point you've already bought too many discs, or you own too many discs for some reason, and you go out to play a course and you haven't really learned all of your discs, but you're switching discs every other hole. You're going out to a course to practice, and for one reason or another, you want to try the other disc, which is good. But if you're wanting to learn the discs you own and kind of practice and learn and get your form down, it's really important to try to go out and play with as least discs as possible. That way you can throw those every hole and see what you need to change on your form, as opposed to what disc you need to change to, which eventually you will get to the point where you get to a hole and you have your go-to disc for that hole. But when you're starting out and you're practicing, it's really important to not overwhelm yourself with a ton of discs and just confusing yourself, because if you throw an overstable disc, hole 3, and then you get to the next hole and you pick up an understable disc and you throw it and you're like, what did I do wrong? What happened? I threw it the same way. You're not going to learn.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think that's something that I've kind of been doing also myself, is I've been kind of narrowing down the discs that I throw every single time, because if I do so, I can be more focused on where I'm throwing, I guess, is kind of what I'm trying to say. So, like, if I've got 5 discs that I know those are the 5 discs I'm going to throw, right? I've got 2 drivers at mid-range and maybe 2 putters, okay? Those are the 5 discs that I normally go out with, and those are the ones I'm going to throw. Then only throwing those, I'm really going to learn those and understand how those discs move. And I think that's kind of critical for just growing your game in general, because when you go out and buy 1,000 different discs, like I know my girlfriend and I, she wants to take a photo shoot of all our discs. I don't want to take a photo shoot of all our discs because I know there's going to be way too many discs there, and I know how much money I spent on these discs, and I'm not trying to do that. So when you're playing with too many discs, you can't actually learn how that disc flies. How does that disc move? And it's one of those things where I really do think that we'll get into it later. But there's another tip that will allow you to kind of understand those discs, and that's when you want to take all your discs with you. So that kind of leads me then into our number 4 tip, and only playing the course and no field work is something you want to avoid. When you only play the course, you're maybe throwing, what, 2 drives on average, maybe a hole, something like that, where when you go out into the field, go to a football field, soccer field, a large patch of dirt, whatever's out there that you got, and just rip discs, you can focus much more on your actual form, your technique, those kinds of things, and less on trying to get it in the basket, trying to get an ace, trying to get it close, those kinds of things. So when you're out there on the field, you can practice your hyzers, you can practice your anhyzers, you can practice your forehand, you can practice your scuba, you can practice your thumber, whatever you want to throw, you can work on it and practice. You can constantly practice your drive, and you can see yourself continuously getting better. And the work that you do in the field is what translates to the course, not the work you do on the course. You want to do your work in the field. That's what makes you get better. Horatio, I know you and myself, both of us, before we play tournaments, we spend at least 30 minutes practicing putting. Because why? If you don't practice that, you're not going to be ready to go when the time matters most.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll add to that is like this game, it's amazing how much of it is muscle memory and technique. So when you only play the course and you go out there and you throw 1 drive, maybe 2, 3 drives if you're practicing, and even then you're throwing 3 different discs, as we just talked about in the last one, your muscle memory is not going to connect. It's not going to figure out what you're doing. As opposed to if you go out to a field and you take, let's say, all your putters or all your mids, and you just throw them 100 times on the same angle. You're wanting to get your hyzer angle down or just a straight shot down, and you're throwing the same 5 discs just over and over and over again for an hour, that muscle memory is going to start to click. And that's all this game is muscle memory and technique. And obviously once you get to a course and tournament, it's a lot of intelligent and figuring out what's the best line and trying to be the most efficient. But if you don't have that muscle memory down, it doesn't matter what line you think you should take. If you get up to your drive and you have trees on the left side and you need to throw a certain drive, that muscle memory is going to save you. You know what disc to throw. You know your body's going to just automatically be able to make that line. That is why field work is so important, because you can get out there and just throw hundreds of throws and really get it down and get it to where you feel comfortable and you're confident in your throws. All right, so that leads us into number 3, learning multiple throws at once. And I think that's one thing that really hurt me the most starting out, and I'm sure you've done it if you started playing, but you see a lot of players, or if you watch live disc golf, you'll see them throwing a bunch of different throws, and they figured them out. They've put in their work to know how to make those throws. But when you're starting out and you have 0 experience in disc golf and you just want to simply get the disc down the fairway as far as possible and as straight as possible, you don't necessarily need to be trying to learn every possible shot. And so I think it's important to focus on one type of throw at a time. And for most people, the most beneficial is going to be just learn how to throw straight. Being able to throw straight is going to help you out in any kind of course. If you're in a tunnel, if you are in an open field where you just need to get distance, get out in the fairway, being able to throw a disc straight is going to be the most beneficial to you. So just focus on throwing the disc on that angle. And then once you feel comfortable with it, yeah, start experimenting with your forearm. So that's throwing the disc not so opposite to backhand. Backhand, you're throwing the disc for a right-handed player. You're throwing it with your right hand coming out. That's the traditional throw, coming out through your chest and following through across your chest. That's your backhand throw. A forearm or side hand throw, that's going to be coming out from the opposite side. You're using your forearm to power that disc, and that's usually going to be used when you have really sharp right turns. It's going to make that opposite angle as opposed to your backhand. So I know when I started out, I wanted to try every throw, so I was throwing everything. I'd go to the course and I would throw all kinds of stuff, and that was really hurting me because I wasn't really getting one or the other down. I was just kind of messing around with every one. What about you? What do you think?
I think that's an incredible tip, and I think we can also look to a pro in James Conrad, for example. This man is one of the guys on tour who the commentators will consistently say he does not have a forehand. When they say he doesn't have a forehand, it's not he literally cannot throw a forehand, it's he will throw backhand 99 out of 100 times. If he absolutely has to throw forehand, he'll throw forehand. It's one of those things where when you diversify yourself too much and you're not able to actually learn and grow in all the throws, it's just going to hold you back. I know myself, I really worked on my backhand significantly more and getting that down and being able to, I'm going to throw this one on hyzer, I'm going to throw this straight, I'm going to throw this on an anhyzer. And then, and just real quick, hyzer is that kind of right to left, anhyzer is the left to right. But this offseason, I know something I'm going to work on a lot is my forehand. How do I get my forehand good? What kind of angles can I do with my forehand? And that's something that I'm looking forward to working on this offseason is that forehand, and constantly working with that forehand for a couple of months and not even really touching my backhand that much. Of course, getting some practice with it, but it's one of those things you want to learn how to throw, and you want to learn to throw that specific throw, be it a forehand, be it putting, be it a backhand, an anhyzer angle, a hyzer angle, something like that. Learn how to do that, become proficient in that, become someone who 19 times out of 20, you're going to be able to hit that throw. And I think that's going to be something that ends up helping you. And I think that kind of leads us into our number 2 tip. And our number 2 tip today is that stop constantly changing your putting stance. It's one of those things where when you constantly change your putting stance, you're never going to be able to get consistency with your putt. I know something that I did when I started was I started putting from the straddle position. That's where your legs are horizontal with your shoulders and you're just kind of coming down and you're putting forward through your body. And I putted like that for my first couple years when I really wasn't playing it that much, and I would have some success with it. I wasn't happy with it, but then once I really got back into disc golf and I was really playing every single day, I had the issue of, okay, one day my straddle's working really well. Oh, today why did I miss the first 2 straddle putts? Let me go to the other style of putting where you're more vertical and your right foot is in front of your left foot and you're a lot slimmer when you're throwing it and you use more legs instead of arm. And I was doing that. And then, that stopped working. I guess I'm going to go back to straddle. That's not working anymore. So stop flipping back and forth. Learn one of those ways to putt and become very proficient in it. And that's not saying you can't go work on another way to putt. That is not what I'm saying. Don't hear that. What I'm saying is find your routine to putt, figure that out, and get good with that. Make sure that you can hit 49 out of 50 throws, 40 out of 50 throws, whatever number you want to hit. Make sure you can hit with that style before you start kind of changing things around, because when you go back and forth like that, you're never going to be able to really find consistency and have confidence when you're in a tournament, or you're playing in league, or you're just playing with some buddies and you really want to beat them because there's some brewskis on the line or whatever it is. So you want to make sure you stick to that stance, but it's also good to practice various stances. There might be a time where if you're straddling, you can't straddle, or there might be a time where you're vertical and you can't really do that and you have to straddle. So always, be working on those sometimes, but don't just constantly flip-flop back and forth. Horatio, I know you got a pretty interesting story about this.
Yeah, I know I did this for sure. I had pretty sure it was my first tournament my legit first tournament. The first one was kind of just like a trilogy challenge. Yeah, it was kind of fun to just try these discs out. So it was my first legit tournament, and I had been throwing just a regular spin putt for those first few months, and then had this tournament coming up, and I practicing the day before, and I was doing a straddle push putt, and I felt pretty good with it. And then so I decided, you know what, this tournament, that's what I'm going to go with. And that was a horrible mistake. I was going with it, and once I got into the tournament and I was going with it, I was like, well, I'm just nervous. Maybe it's just, it's not warmed up yet, so I stuck with it. But a lot of putts that I should have made, or I normally would have made in my normal putting position, I missed because I changed my putt style that last minute, and that really hurt me. And I think you made a great point. It's like, try the different putting styles and figure out what you're comfortable with, what feels right for your body. Because some of these guys that are 5'10", 5'11", taller guys, they can do those push putts like nothing. They have that arm length and they can do that putting style super easy. But some of the shorter guys, like myself, we don't have that arm length to where we can just make that putt from 30 feet out or whatever with just a push putt. We need to, for myself, I think the spin putt works a little bit better. So I'm trying to focus on that, sticking to that one. And sometimes I'll pull out the straddle if I'm in a weird position or behind a tree or something where I have to, but just really being consistent with that. But that's going to take us to our number one mistake that we have made in our journey so far in disc golf, and that is going straight to the run-up X step. And so if you guys are new and you're not too familiar with the X step, that's kind of just the step you take up to when you drive. So that's, you take a left foot and then the right foot, and then you bring your left foot behind your right foot, and you finish off with taking your right foot, planting your left foot offset to your body. And all this is doing is building that energy and building the momentum in your hips. You're building that power that's going to drive the disc out of your body. Because most people think that your arm speed and your arm strength is what's really launching that disc. And it's partially true, but what really is going to get that disc out there 400 feet, 500 feet, for a lot of us 300 feet, or give you the difference, it's going to be that power that's you're building up through your hips. And so that's what the X step is. And I think a lot of us, and myself, the mistake we do is that's what we see people doing, and so that's what we're going to do. And it's a little confusing, a little tough at times, but if you don't do that correctly, if you don't do it perfectly, your entire drive is going to be off. It's going to be a bad throw, and you're going to have a bad time. So my advice, and what fortunately I kind of picked up on and I learned, was after about a couple of weeks of playing and not being able to figure that out, I went to a standstill and watched some YouTube videos on this. But basically, you're just practicing your reach back and you're turning your hips and you're not moving. You're throwing from a standstill. When you're ready to go, you pull through with your arm, you pull that disc through your chest, and you turn your hips. And this is basically the last step of the X step. So you're really focusing on getting that down, getting your reach back, your pull through down, and getting that power from your hips. And I literally did stand still for 2.5 months, 3 months maybe, until I really got that down. And I was super consistent with it. That first tournament we played, I kind of had practice X step, but I went to my standstill because I was comfortable with it and I was really consistent with it. And after doing that, then I slowly transitioned into doing the X step. And even then, I did a super slow X step. I really focused on my footing. I focused on opening up my hips, turning my hips into my drive, and then that final step where I'm building the power and doing my plant foot. And that's when you do your reach back, basically getting my timing down. So even once you go to your X step, don't rush into it. Do it really slowly and you'll be super happy with your results. What about you? What do you think?
I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I know that I've always been someone who, doing my X step, I've always gone super slow, and I still go super slow, and it's one of those things where I want to control myself, and it's really that final step, when you're kind of in that X position, and then that right foot plants, and then you throw it, you want to make sure that right foot is out in front, so you get that hip rotation. And to really practice that, I love what you said about the standstill. Going standstill will help you get better at the X step, will help your drives. And I think my girlfriend and your wife are incredible examples about that, yourself as well, because I transitioned my girlfriend to do the standstill, and since she's done that, her drives have A, been more consistent, and B, have gone further. So starting with that standstill before you really do the X step is super important. And at least for myself, when I used to just absolutely run up there and just let it go, I had absolutely zero accuracy with it. Who knew where that disc was going? Where now I'm in a position where I really want to start doing it, where I actually run up and do the X step and just have it all come out. I feel as though I'm to the point where I might be able to do that, and that might give me an extra 50 to 100, 150 feet on my drives. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be doing in my chapter of disc golf, so make sure you stay tuned to hear how those results go. But I think that's really important that you actually do the X step slow, because if you don't understand the fundamentals of how the X step works, you're never going to be able to do it, and you're never going to be able to really throw the disc how you want to throw the disc. Those are, I guess, my thoughts on it. Anything else to add before we close out the show, H-Town?
Yeah, even on that one, just going through the standstill and then a slow X step, and then finally getting to a more quicker, natural run up X step. Record yourself through every single one of those, because even though you might be doing the standstill, you still can mess it up. You still can be reaching back too far across your body, or you might not be coming across with your hips correctly, or you're not releasing at the right time. So even though it's a standstill and it sounds more simple in kind of the beginning, you still need to record yourself, because if you learn bad habits during your standstill, those are going to carry over into your X step once you feel comfortable doing that, and your form will still be bad. But I mean, that pretty much wraps up those 10 mistakes that we have made, and hopefully we can keep some of you guys from making going forward and improve your game a lot quicker by not having to battle with those.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. Today we did talk about our 10 mistakes that you should avoid when starting out playing disc golf. Let us know what mistakes you think that we might have missed, maybe which mistakes that we're simply wrong on. If you're watching on YouTube, comment down below. Otherwise, tweet at us, Instagram at us, do one of those things. If you ever want some form advice, just tag us in your Instagram story. We'll check it out, maybe get back to you. We appreciate each and every single one of you that are listening to this. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you could leave us a 5-star rating, or just whatever rating you think that we deserve, maybe some feedback. We'd really highly appreciate that. Share this with your disc golf friends, and let's just continue to build the Chain Clankers community. You are the people that we're doing this for, and hopefully you guys do enjoy this and like the show, and we can build something magical out of this. We'd love absolutely nothing more from this. But again, we thank you guys so much for listening. For Horatio, I'm Quentin. See ya! Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.